tifu by helping drunk coworker and trusting HR, by user Hates Yonder. 29M, work in digital marketing. Company held party to celebrate the completion of big project. As I was walking to my car, I noticed a drunk female coworker, mid-30s. We worked together for 3 years, but it's a big department and I don't know much about her. She was having difficulty walking. I offered to help and she held out her hand. I asked if she drove here. She took an Uber. Helped her call another one as she vomited. Uber driver arrived, saw the condition she was in, and took off without saying a word. Understandable. I decided to drive her home. I have a dual front and rear dashcam setup. I moved the rear camera, placed it in front, and adjusted angle to make sure inside of vehicle is covered. Lifesaver. Fast forward 1 month to April 25th, last week, and I was called into HR. My manager was sitting with a serious expression. They asked what I did after the party. I immediately became defensive and asked what the meeting is about. HR person said that they received a complaint from an employee accusing me of inappropriate behavior. I responded, I have no idea what you are talking about. I did nothing inappropriate during or after that party. Whoever complained has the wrong guy. They stepped out into the hallway for a couple minutes. I'm starting to sweat even though I did nothing wrong. Thinking, I remember giving coworker a ride home. That must be it. They stepped back into the office. Manager says they have a witness who saw me put drunk coworker into my car. I said, yeah, I drove her home. Nothing happened, and I did not put her in. She accepted the help. Silence. They stare at me like I'm guilty. Nothing but suspicion and judgment. HR says they'll continue investigating and will speak to me the following week. I received an email today, telling me to make a statement for the police and that I'm suspended until the case is dismissed. I'm pissed. Really pissed. I hired an attorney and submitted statement to police. After asking around, I learned the coworker I gave a ride to is apparently the ex-wife of my manager's golfing buddy. Yet, little does the company know I protected myself with dashcam footage as well as a short cell phone video of me walking her to the house. I am innocent and will fight this. TLDR, I drove drunk coworker home. Accused of inappropriate behavior 1 month later. Suspended by my company while they investigate. I hired attorney and have video footage proving my innocence. TIFU by volunteering to research and report back to my, very, conservative pro-life family the cause of my grandmother's mysterious death at the age of 32. She died following an incomplete and, then, illegal abortion in 1958, by user Cybervol. My paternal grandmother's death in 1958 at the age of 32 has always been shrouded in mystery. Throughout the years, there have been various bits of hearsay that have led to theories and speculation of her dying of the flu, hepatitis, a heart attack, appendicitis, etc. After another recent round of speculation at a family gathering, I volunteered to take the lead in researching the exact cause of her death, if such could be determined. Further, I offered to report any findings back to all, so as to finally put the speculation and matter to rest. After some digging on Ancestry.com, I found both her and the actual copy of her death certificate, and which lists sepsis, and incomplete abortion, infected as the cause, of death. I've checked and rechecked the information, it exactly matches her in every category: name, maiden name, job, location of birth, address, mother's name, father's name, date of death, city/county/state of death, etc. etc. It's 100% her. This is 100% her death certificate. I've included a link to the image of her redacted death certificate both for any who wish to see it, but also to serve as proof of the veracity of my claim and sincerity in posing my question. The problem is that my family is extremely conservative, very religious, and not unexpectedly, very, very, pro-life. Needless to say, this news will no doubt be extremely upsetting to multiple generations of my immediate and extended family, and which still includes some of her living children, and my aunts and uncle. What if my telling them only further injures my grandmother's already tragic tale by sullying her memory in the minds of her living relatives? This is far and away my greatest concern. I'm not sure what to say, if anything, or how best to do so. I've sat in this information for a little more than a week, weighing my options on the best path forward. For their part, they're all understandably and anxiously waiting and wanting to know what I've found, and regularly asking me for updates. Paternal grandmother's death certificate. TL, Dr. volunteered to research and report back on exact cause of grandmother's death to very conservative/pro-life family, immediate and extended, and discovered that it resulted from an incomplete and, then, illegal abortion. I've now got to figure out whether or not to say anything, and if so, what. Edit. Some quick info that might be helpful, by the comments. Her family, my grandfather, 4 kids, ab 17, 15, 14, and my father was 9, lived in abject poverty. They'd regularly skip meals for days until they had enough money to buy more food. Because my grandfather would not accept help of any kind, my grandmother would sneak garden-grown food given to her by her sisters who lived nearby. All agree that she was very sick and suffered with a high fever for some days before she sought medical attention. Early into her illness/ailment, her sister found her struggling to do laundry on one of those roll-top machines on the back porch and had to take her inside and put her to bed for fear that she was about to pass out. She stayed in bed and my grandfather prohibited anyone from entering the room, and he alone saw and spoke to her. Some believed that he limited contact out of fear that she was somehow contagious. He told the kids and her sisters that she only needed rest. On the second or third day, sometime before lunch, an ambulance was summoned to the home. This was immediately understood to be an extraordinary measure, given its cost. Only my grandfather accompanied her in the ambulance, and urged no one to come to visit her once admitted to the hospital. Instead, he told the older kids to look after the younger in their absence. The sisters of my grandmother, my great-aunts, immediately came to be with the children. My father, then age 9 and the youngest child, recalls seeing them wheel his mother out of the house on a gurney, and gently waving to him as she was being placed into the rear of the ambulance. It was the last time he would see her alive. Later that night, my grandfather returned home alone and informed the family that she had died. Accounts vary, but my grandfather essentially refused to leave their bedroom for a number of days after her death, except to use the outhouse and to attend her funeral services, and which her sisters prepared and arranged, while also caring for the kids. Despite remarrying another woman less than a year later, and being married to her for 50+ years, he never moved her clothes and shoes out of their closet, and forbid anyone else from doing so, even until his death in 2010 or so. My grandmother's death had far-reaching implications for her family, essentially fracturing it, and which causes consequences still dealt with today. My father developed a drinking problem a few years after my grandmother's passing, with such only being greatly accelerated and further exacerbated by a tour in Vietnam, and which led to his untimely death in the early 90s. In a very real sense, my children never knew their grandfather because of the tragic events that occurred with my grandmother's tragic passing. Also edited abstract for abject. TIFU by downing 2 liters of apple juice and not appreciating the effect this has on the human bowel, by user throwaway 1984 UK. Obligatory throwaway account and this actually happened earlier this week. TLDR at the bottom. My job is driving around shops and putting out displays, leaflets, POS etc. I had one particular call that involved moving lots of heavy stock and building some massive displays. 2 hours of very heavy manual labor left me literally dripping in sweat and craving a nice cool, refreshing drink. Before leaving the shop, I went to the fruit juice chiller. £1 for 1 liter of apple juice or £1 and 50 pence for 2 liters. I love apple juice so I'll take the 2 liters please. I drank the first liter in the 2-minute walk back to my car. American Samoa. I was incredibly thirsty. My next store was about 45 minutes away, so get in my car and crank up the air con. Drink the second liter of apple juice within the first 5 minutes of my drive and start to feel refreshed, so stuck on a podcast and settled in for the drive. 15 minutes until the end of my drive and I start to get a bit of cramping in my stomach. Think to myself that I'll use the bathroom at my next store. 10 minutes until the end of my drive and the cramps are getting worse. Do a little lean to the side and try to let out a fart to see if that helps. Feels like I better not push too hard to try and get that out. 5 minutes until my destination and circumstances are getting worse. I'm shifting in my chair to try and get comfy, the urge to go is getting pretty urgent. I look for somewhere to stop that might have a bathroom but nowhere looks promising. Consider pulling over and running behind a tree or something but stuck in slow-moving traffic, so decide to clench and push on. Pulling into the car park, I try to park as close to the store as I could and get ready to literally run through the store to their bathroom. I park and lean over to the passenger footwell to pick up my jacket. That was a bad move. The lean to the side has compromised my clenched sphincter, the dam gives way and the floodgates open. I feel warm liquid fill my boxers. It stinks, but in a way there is a small relief as the intense stomach pains are almost gone. I sit there in a puddle of apple juice that had just rapidly passed through my digestive system and contemplate my options. I do what any sane man would do and call my wife. Hello. Babe, I've got a problem. Oh no, are you okay? Have you been in a crash? Are you hurt? No. I've shit my pants and don't know what to do. What the fuck? That's fucking hilarious. What are you, a toddler? Where are you? About an hour and 15 minutes from home. Oh my god. Well, you can either go in the shop and get some trousers or drive home. At this point, she's still taking the piss out of me, but I'm quickly distracted by an all too suddenly familiar feeling in my stomach. Round 2. Oh no, there's more coming out. What the fuck, are you actually shitting yourself right now? Ugh, it's disgusting. I can't stop it. Now round 1 was just a preview, round 2 was the full show. It was pure liquid shit gushing out of my ass and there was nothing I could do to stem the flow. I end up just making weird noises and have lost off ability to communicate. Imagine the worst shit you've ever had, but you're sitting down in a car seat whilst doing it and your wife is listening via the hands-free. Oh no, it's breached the waistband. Up until this point, everything had been contained in my boxers, but I suddenly felt wetness creeping up my lower back and the awful smell getting stronger. If you've ever had a kid, remember those awful shits that come out the top of their nappy and all up their back? Well, that is happening to me, a 37-year-old man, sitting in a company car, over an hour from home. Eventually the torrent subsides and I have no words for how I feel. I am literally sitting with my boxers full of liquid shit which has overflowed up my back. I feel exhausted and wet. I swear the entire 2 liters of apple juice is now in my pants. I'm coming home, I'm literally covered in shit. Retching noises from wife. You're repulsive. Give me a call when you're 10 minutes from home. I start the most uncomfortable drive I've ever experienced. Every gear change was creating a ripple effect with the shitty liquid. Every time I would accelerate or brake, the liquid would slosh backwards and forwards. The next issue was letting my boss know that I was going to be home early so wouldn't be able to complete my calls for the day. But what could I say? I've just shit myself in an explosive way whilst sitting in your company car. I say that I've been ill and am heading home. Didn't elaborate any further and he said to speak to him tomorrow morning and let him know how I was then. So I drive home, getting cold as the previously body temperature liquid was getting cooler. I call my wife when 10 minutes from home and she says she's going to wait in the back garden until I've sorted myself out, and she put down a bin bag in the hallway for me to stand on and strip off. I pull up outside the house and come across my latest problem, standing up. Despite the incident occurring over an hour ago, there was still a lot of wetness down there and I knew that as soon as I stood up, gravity would take over. I slip off my shoes and leave them in the car, take a deep breath and go for it. As I stand up, I can feel the wetness trickling down my legs. Within seconds it's below my knees and I'm still a few steps from the front door. By the time I get there are drips coming out the bottom on my trouser legs, leaving a shitty breadcrumb trail up my garden path. I get in the house, step on the bin bag in the hallway and close the front door behind me. You can look through my house and see the back garden from the hallway, and I see my wife staring at me with her hands over her mouth in disgust. She immediately starts retching and runs off down the garden. I start to get undressed, trousers first, and it is not a pretty sight. I put my boxers and trousers in the other waiting bin bag. There is no way they're getting salvaged. Next comes my top. What I had forgotten at this point was the waistband breach and the fact that my lower back was also covered. As I take my top off, I feel a wet smear going up my back and it dawns on me, there is shit on the bottom of my top and I'm not spreading it all over myself. Already in too deep, I take the top over my head and end up smearing more shit in my hair. Now naked in the hallway and literally covered from head to toe, I start using the supplied pack of baby wipes to get the worst off. I then follow the trail of bin bags up the stairs to the bathroom to shower. I have the hottest, longest shower I've ever had. I was in there for a good half hour. The initial 5 minutes was probably the worst as all the shit was accumulating in the shower tray, leaving me standing in a shitty water puddle. I even used bleach to clean myself. Eventually I felt clean enough so got dressed. I went downstairs and was met with the absolute carnage I had left the hallway in. The most horrendous smell, but with a small hint of apple, and traces of shit everywhere. My wife stayed out in the garden for the next half hour whilst I sorted it out. I don't blame her, I would have done the same, before she finally came back in the house and sprayed a whole can of air freshener. She stood looking at me, a shocked look on her face, and just said, "What the actual fuck?" I had no real explanation, I just didn't make it to the toilet in time. She asked me if I felt ill, I felt fine. She asked me what I'd had to eat and drink that day. I said I'd had nothing out of the ordinary apart from an apple juice. When I told her how much I'd drank, she just burst out laughing. You basically drank 2 liters of laxative. She then explained to me how apple juice contains high levels of fructose and should only be drunk in small quantities, hence why it is sold in smaller bottles than Coke etc. I did not know this. I then remembered the car. I had yet to see the state of this. I went out armed with a bucket of warm soapy water, bin bags, wipes and rubber gloves. The smell when opening the car door was like nothing I'd ever experienced and immediately made me retch, but I knew what had to be done. I won't go into too much detail, but I was out there about 45 minutes and it wasn't pleasant. All of this happened 3 days ago. I'm currently having to sit on a bin bag in my car and there is still a lingering shitty, slightly apple-scented smell. Any advice of cleaning car upholstery would be much appreciated. My wife has said that this is going to take her a while to get over this. TLDR, drank 2 liters of apple juice in 10 minutes. Didn't know this would have a laxative effect. Explosively shit myself sitting in my company car whilst my wife listened on via the phone. Had to drive an hour home covered head to toe in shit. TIFU by loudly yelling that's what she said while in line for security for my flight, by user Representative 38. This literally just happened. I'm on the plane now just cringing because it keeps replaying in my head. The TSA agent needed the line to push together and move forward. However, when yelling instructions he literally said please push it in as far as you can. How are you gonna say that to a large group of people and not expect someone to say something? Well, today I am someone. Without even thinking, not even a moment's hesitation, I loudly blurted out that's what she said back to him. I immediately regretted it. When I tell you not a single person laughed. When I tell you so many heads turned and looked at me utterly appalled. Man. I'm just so glad I never have to see these people again and can leave this moment in this state never to be thought about again SMH. TLDR, TSA agent set me up perfectly. I responded with a that's what she said and apparently horrified the other passengers and earned not a one laugh. Edit, wow my plane just landed and I'm having the best time reading all your comments. I didn't expect anything when I posted it, I was just dying inside and needed it off my chest but man this is awesome. We are all now all BFFs and I love you. Also there were a couple people who seemed to think I'm a man, making an inappropriate joke. Come on now read my bio PPL go through my history there's pics of me there if you look. I am a 22-year-old very petite girl and I promise you no one was worried about me being a threat or a pervert lol. But there's apparently a special place in hell for me because someone inferred that I'm a heckler for this joke. My question to that is, then wouldn't I be going to heck instead? Edit 2, okay so a frequently asked question is who was I flying with, and this is the key to the problem of what happened. I was alone. Usually my mom, dad, and / or fiancé are flying with me. I don't fly much to begin with. Any diehard fan of The Office knows how great a well-timed that's what she said joke is, and my whole family is diehard Office fans. Diehard lol, so usually I would turn to them and say it just to them. But they weren't there when the reflex came, and I guess my brain's solution was just to say it loud enough for everyone to hear it instead. Final edit, I think to those of you telling me to grow up no. You go heal your inner child so that you can laugh at childish small things and the mistakes of others without being offended. I admit I made a foo, but no one was hurt, the joke didn't land, and that was it. You are the problem if you are offended. And finally I am not implying females can't be perverts. I said in a comment but need to say it here too they absolutely can be, many women are, and I detest them with every fiber of my being. I am very sensitive to this topic as again you can see in my history my experience as a crime victim, I take it very seriously. Please stop messaging me or commenting asking why I'm defending girl pervs. I am not one, and do not like the implication that I am. But 95% of you guys are cool AF and again, I love you all. Last edit, I love Reddit. I had hoped I would never think about it again and it's become my most popular post ever. Never change, Reddit. TIFU by telling people at my friend's wedding I'm from Texas, by user throw this away I36. I guess I'll begin by saying I'm a 25F and I'm from Texas. One of my friends lives in New Jersey and she recently got married. I flew up from Texas and there was over 100 people. I was the only one from Texas. So during the night I was talking to some people at the wedding and they asked me where I'm from and I mentioned that I'm from Texas. Their moods changed with me almost right away. Some of the men and women both started talking to me about guns and how Texas people are, mentioning the border, and rednecks, etc. Acting like they should be wary of me. Just coming right at me with a bunch of stereotypes. It was shocking for me to hear them and see how they were acting differently towards me after this. I'm a kinda big girl with a couple tattoos and one of the women asked me if I've been in a fight in a saloon before. I feel like I fucked up by mentioning this, but on the other hand I wasn't ready for their reactions either. TIFU by mentioning to people at my friend's wedding that I'm from Texas and had them coming at me with a bunch of stereotypes.